It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full forward.
Becky's taken a ripper! He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
All thanks to Mequicare, proud partner of the VAFA.
Makes a name for himself with these long bombs from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Welcome to For the Love of the Game, and the home and away season has been run and won. All the mysteries around who would make September, who wouldn't, have been solved. Now we all look ahead to the next few weeks of footy. We've had some grand finals, we've had 6 premiers crowned and hoisted the cup over the weekend. We'll congratulate all of those. We'll preview all the grand finals that are coming up. We've got another 6 coming up this weekend. So lots to get through. It is a bumper edition. Patrick Grindlay, how did you enjoy your weekend?
Hello, Jason Bennett. That's the smell of September in the nostrils. How exciting
I'm glad that's what it was. I was thinking we might need to get some air freshener in.
Correct. It can get a bit musty at HQ at this time of year. But no, it was a lovely weekend of footy. We had an interesting little weather conundrum out at Keysborough at Haileybury College for the Scotch Haileybury game. But what a story the Cardinals have been this season, Jason Bennett. We thought they were done a couple of weeks ago. Even Charlie Cormack, their star intercept defender, thought he would be guts up by this time of the year, but they've got a final in a couple of weeks' time against St Kevin's. Looking forward to breaking it down with you and Matthew Donald.
Paddy, Jace, always good to be back and with you guys. And as you quite rightly mentioned at the top, it was a chaotic weekend of footy. We had finals permutations and we had grand finals as well over the weekend. So it was a really busy weekend, and it's only going to get more chaotic in this month. And this is the payoff for all of those hard winter months. We're at the business end of it now. Only the very best survive from here, and I can't wait for it.
Your weather conundrum, what was that?
There's just the wind and the breeze and everything. We had 15 seasons in one day, let alone
Welcome
4.
to Melbourne.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like
something unusual.
That's a good point. But I've never actually been to that part of the city before, to that sort of southeast corridor.
Oh, really? You've packed your passport, have you, and headed south?
I thought this could be really interesting. I've rocked up and Simon Petch and Hugo are stoked. It's essentially a home game for them. I'm a Northwest kind of operator, but the breeze out there was unbelievable. You'd kick it 3 metres off the deck and it would start swirling around, especially in the first half. We'll go through that, though, with Mark Natt in a few minutes' time.
That's what footy is all about. In fact, we'll start there. Why not? It was a wildly unpredictable home and away season. It went all the way to the wire in Premier Men's, the minor premiership, 4th spot, relegation, all decided on the final afternoon. And that 4th spot was up for grabs as Old Haileybury, who'd looked like a likely finalist for most of the season, hosted Old Scotch at Haileybury College in Keysborough. The winner would grab 4th spot. The loser would miss out. Their lead-up form could barely have been more different. The Bloods had limped into the final round. Old Scotch, buoyed by an injection of their VFL talent, roared back into contention. But early on, Paddy, and you were at this game doing the game for our VAFA SEN Match of the Day coverage. Ollie Houghton outstanding, 12 touches and 4 clearances in the opening term. Haileybury strong around the contest, but they just could not put it on the scoreboard. Disastrous. 7 behinds to 1-4 with the win. So they actually trailed at quarter time.
Yeah, the interesting thing is the wind that was blowing was incredibly difficult to read on the ground. 40-metre arc, so it's a bit of a cricket field out there at Haileybury College, but once the ball got above 3 or 4 metres off the deck, it was doing all sorts in the air. It sort of looked like Mitch Stark with the pink cake at the Adelaide Test. So there was plenty going on with the breeze. Both squads really struggled to read it, but it was, again, similar to the St Bernard's game with Old Haileybury a couple of weeks ago, where they did have some extended time inside 50, or inside 40 rather, and just weren't able to get the nourishment on the scoreboard. That came a little bit later on, but by that point, Old Scotch had piled on some goals and held the scoreboard advantage and were able to control the pace of the play a bit. But to be frank with you, I was really impressed with the Bloods, even though they didn't score a goal in the first half. Their inside midfield, which has been banged up, and we can ask Daniel Ward exactly about what's happened to his team since the double bye. But the likes of Josh Gasparini, Ollie Houghton, as you mentioned, really lifted against a very mature Old Scotch engine room.
Yeah, so it was 23 points at half-time. They were 9 behinds were the Bloods. And the next goal in that third term sort of really grew in significance. James Tarrant kicked a goal from 25 out. It was a big moment against the flow because the Bloods in the third quarter had actually played some pretty good footy, just didn't get any rewards of it. And then the early minutes of the final term, Tarrant, a great handball off to Tawney, made it 22 points. That blew out to 28 points a minute later. And from there, really, they could just control the game, and they did. They just sat on the game, 33 uncontested marks to 11 in the final term. Sam Grant was outstanding, controlling the football. And in the end, the Cardinals survived, and they will face St Kevin's in the cutthroat first semi-final. And while they won't have all their VFL-listed talent back due to finals eligibility, their rejuvenated lineup enough to challenge for back-to-back titles, I would think. Let's ask the man himself. old Scotch coach, their premiership coach, Mark GNATT. Natty, thanks so much for your time. Can you do it again?
G'day, Jace. Well, why not? Why not? We're in there. We're 1 of 4 now, so we're certainly give ourselves the best chance. But yeah, it's great to be in there.
Bit of a crazy season. It's been all around. It's been incredibly even. We were just talking about collegians being relegated after winning 6.5 games, which just shows the quality of the competition in this season. For you, it's been, well, a challenge that we spoke about with you at the start of the year, knowing that you had 15 VFL listed players. It was going to make the year interesting in terms of balancing talent and having changes to your lineup. How do you feel like you've managed it?
Listen, I'm not going to lie. There's been moments of frustration to a degree. But listen, I think we've actually managed it pretty well. And, you got to be really clear on where you're at. And we've been very, very proud to promote our boys into the VFL system. And, so that is what it is. And off the back of that gives us opportunity to blood a few more guys. I think we've, been roughly 50 players have played senior footy for us this year, probably a dozen debutants in that. So it's also about building for the future. And, even though some of those games, especially early on when, things weren't going our way, you don't need to get too caught up in it all. It's around how we can develop our group as a whole. And I think that's the opportunities that we've taken. And I think we've actually done that pretty well.
So you still feel as strongly about giving players the opportunity to go and play VFL football as you did, say, 12 months ago?
Yeah, that hasn't changed. And I think I was speaking to Paddy and Hugo and the boys on the weekend that, it's about partnering with the VFL programs. If you're going to try and work against them, then I think you've got a problem. So, one thing I've been able to do and us as a club is to really build some good relationships with VFL coaches and programs. And, together you can actually develop the players really well. And, you've got to acknowledge that when the player often comes back to us or back to local, they're disappointed. They're generally being dropped. That's the reason. So how do you manage that player? How do you manage that person? And as I said, that's where as coaches, VFL and local, you can have those conversations and support the player and also focus on the areas of development or what it is that maybe they need to be doing a little bit differently at VFL level. So to me, it's around looking at the win-win scenario rather than, who haven't we got? So I think that, the attitude hasn't changed, and I think we've grown a lot around how we've managed that process. I
want to take you back 3 weeks. You just lost your 4th game in a row. You'd lost to Collegians, Old Brighton, Old Zabs and the Blues. You were 3 games out plus percentage with 3 games to play. Now, Natties, you were driving home on Saturday night, that Saturday night after the Blues game. Did you think your season was over?
No, I didn't. And we were very flat after that loss to Blues. There's no doubt about that. And you need to, we all went up to the aftermatch and you do what you need to do and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, we were pretty flat in the first instance, but in reality, I knew the season was still alive, but it was about we needed to just hone back in on some of the basics and focusing on ourselves and playing our way. And that's what we did. And there was a few things that we did at the club to do that and not worrying about what could or couldn't happen over the next 3 weeks, because people like yourself, Jace, had us in the relegation conversation. So, those little bits and pieces, you're aware of the noise, but we needed to just deal with what we're in control of. And at that point, it was St Bernard's the following week, and that's what we did.
In fairness, you were in the relegation conversation at that point.
Well, it wasn't only that, Mark GNATT, but I've just gone back to the August 11 article and I found this interesting little snippet. The Blues' gain is Old Scotch's loss, and now not only is the Cards' premiership defence now officially over, but they also find themselves dragged out into the relegation race.
You don't have to back the bus over it. I've already copped to it.
Well, old mate Splinters got off the fence there, didn't he? So
this is why I don't tip, Natty. Clearly, what the hell would I know? But I will say that the chances, the amount of teams that would be 3 games out plus percentage with 3 to play and have made finals over the years would be what, 1 in 10,000 maybe, 1 in 1,000. It's an incredible effort because as well as you guys have played the last 3 weeks, you've needed the teams above you to fall over, and fortunately for you, they have. Fortunately for you also, you've had the opportunity to knock 2 of them over, which has been important. So you've earned your way in.
Yeah, listen, we're in control of our own destiny with obviously Blacks and Haileybury. But I think in reality, and it's a fair comment, I mean, nine wins generally won't get you into the finals. I don't know the numbers or the history on that, but, 10 wins can get you in, but 9 wins is pretty unusual, and it's probably reflective of the season. Obviously, the top 2 and even really top 3 just kept winning. And, it was that middle group there where it was, even Blues was still mathematically a chance of making finals, and everyone's talking about them getting relegated at one point a few weeks ago as well. So it's just that middle group of 4 teams there where certainly could have gone up, could have gone down. And it's just the nature of the way the season played out for everyone. And as you said, we were probably the beneficiaries there, that we're in control come the last round, and we're able to get it done. So, we're now hitting the finals. The home and away season now means nothing. It's about starting fresh and 4 teams all having a crack.
Well, lucky for you, Mark, I came prepared. So for the first time since at least 2011, a Premier men's team's qualified for the finals without winning more than 50% of its games, and that's you guys with a 9-9 record this year. We just mentioned earlier how unlikely it was 3 weeks ago that you were going to make finals. Was there one thing specifically that you were able to cling on to during that time that gave you the belief that you could still do it?
Yeah, probably. It didn't really focus on the outcome or focus on the finals. And I know you guys have spoken about that over the last few weeks with a few other coaches too. But it was about not worrying about that side of it. We just needed to get back to our basics and get back to what we needed to do, and having the group together and not getting too caught up in finals or relegation or whatever the outcomes are going to be, they're going to be. So we just needed to control our own backyard a little bit, and that's exactly what we did. So I knew what was, I'll say, likely to happen. I've also been in this competition long enough to know that strange things happen in the last month of VAFA footy, where bottom sides beat top sides, fighting relegation, etc. That's what happens. So you've just got to be prepared to whatever that's going to be. Make sure you're in a positive state to capitalise off the back of that. So, yeah, I knew where it could land, but we had to take care of business first, and that was the focus, and that's what we did.
And that's why you never use phrases like officially over, for example, Paddy. I hope you've learnt from that experience of...
Always learning from you, Jace, good or bad.
Oh, listen, I think we were written off by some people probably back about round 4, round 5 when Xavier and Brighton certainly got hold of us back then. So
yeah, don't go looking too hard, Natty.
You don't get too caught up in all that sort of stuff, and you don't win premierships in April. So
you're welcome, Natty. You're welcome. I'm glad I could inspire you guys.
No, we had a photo of you up on the
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Just a final one then, Natty, from me on the evenness of the competition this year, because we said 9-9 records. Not often that gets you into finals. So it says that wins have been pretty hard to come by in this division this season. Compared to previous campaigns, have you noticed a sharp incline in how competitive the league has been this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's always very even. I know DLR didn't win a game, but they were all very competitive as well. And for collegiates to go down with a percentage of 95 or whatever it is quite unusual, and obviously they had a few close losses too. So it is a very even competition across the board. I mean, it always is. And I think that's really changed. And even if you sort of go down into the top sides of B grade, I mean, I've got no doubt those sides that come up will be competitive next year as well. So that's just the nature of the comp that we're in, and that's one of the beauties, I think, of the battle of the 2 up, 2 down, and how even it is across the board. There's no doubt that the standard across the comp has improved, and the depth, and obviously a lot of clubs, not just us, but there's other clubs with a number of boys in the VFL system as well. So you can see that, and the impact of a few players does make a fairly big difference.
Natty, thanks so much.
Yeah, have seen it.
Natty, thanks so much for your time as always, mate. I'm off to sit back on the fence again and to settle back down on the perch there. Best of luck for a couple of weeks, mate. St Kevin's versus Old Scotch in the first semi-final on Saturday, September 13. It should be a beauty.
No worries. Thanks, mate.
So Old Scotch still alive, incredibly. 3 games behind plus percentage with 3 to play. They have done it again, the Cardinals, and they will be heading for another finals campaign. Unfortunately for Old Haileybury, the same can't be said, Matty. Such a promising year. First half of the season was absolutely outstanding. They were the story of the competition, really. And then, unfortunately, in the back half of the year, it just all fell away. What did Daniel Ward have to say after that final disappointment?
Yeah, so he basically put it down to one team taking their opportunities against another team unable to. Had the win in the opening term and had control of the game. You mentioned 0 goals, 7 to quarter time, whereas when Scotch had the go with the win in the second term, they were able to put some goals on the board. And he wished, of course, Mark GNATT and the players the best of luck for the upcoming final series. As far as the overall campaign was concerned, he said it was difficult to sum up. On the one hand, they've come up from B grade and they've put themselves in finals contention right up until the final day of the home and away season. But at the end of the day, they still did have the opportunity to qualify for finals and they let it slip in the last few weeks.
Andreas Stefanakis won the A-grade goal kicking. Fantastic effort from him. He's got such a bright future at just 20 years of age.
Yeah, there are so many things that they can do with Dre Stefanakis as well. We typically see him play out of like the sort of bush full forward role where he plays out of the square. He's not a tall man, but they used him pinch hitting through the midfield. He reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Pickett in the way that he manages to play that half-forward switch roll up the ground. And he's a beautiful field kick of the footy. We haven't seen much of it because he's usually been kicking them through the centremost uprights this season. But when he's actually trying to hit up targets, especially across half forward, there's something there, I think, for Dre Stefanakis if we see him more at VAFA level, Matty.
I watched him a couple of weeks ago against St Bernard's. I think we commented at the time that the Bloods needed two of him. They needed one bursting out of the centre and then have him kicking it to another version of him at full forward. He's just got so many good attributes. He's going to be a very dangerous player for a very, very long time.
Meanwhile, at the other end of the ladder, all eyes are at the Snake Pit. St Bernard's hosting St Kevin's, knowing that a Snowdogs win would see them survive in Premier Men's for 2026. With their third spot already locked away, Scob coach Anthony Lynch took the opportunity to rest a large group of senior players. He made a whopping 13 changes to his round 17 lineup. But it was Scob who seized the early initiative. They kicked 3 of the first 4 goals. They led by 10 points at the break. They extended that margin in the second term. St Bernard's just couldn't quite finish their work, and they added just 6 behinds for the quarter. St Kevin's found a couple of goals. Elliot Marnie had 3 to half-time. Collegians fans who were reluctantly forced into barracking for the Scob for the one and only time in their lives, they were nervous but mildly confident. St Kevin's at the major break, 19 points up, and the Lions were 46 points up at the same time at Harry Trott. So at that point, it was the Snowdogs headed for Premier B next season. But the third term saw the Purple Army's nightmare realised. The Dogs began to take charge. It started at the contest. The home crowd found its voice. Jackson Haitley, who's just been such a difference maker over the last couple of weeks, he got hot in a hurry. They kicked 3 goals in 8 minutes to start the term, and then another one at the 15-minute mark to hit the front, and then another 4 minutes later, and they found one against the runner play, did Scob, but the Dogs had the last say of the quarter, and they led by 8 points at the final change. And they maintained that momentum. They kicked early goals in the last quarter, got it out to 20 points, and then another couple in a couple of minutes and broke the resistance. And in the end, the margin blew out to 34 points. Jackson Haitley, 43 touches, 11 clearances, 11 inside 50s, and a goal to go with his 47 last week. So more than any other factor, he is the man that kept St Bernard's up in Premier B in Premier A rather in 2026. They win by 34 points. They defy the odds. They knock off 2 finals contenders in the last fortnight of the season to dodge relegation. And Collegians will be heading to Premier B for the first time since 2006.
6.5 wins for Collegians, and they're heading down to Premier B. That's a bitter pill to swallow, Matty.
Percentage of 95 as well. That's incredibly high for a team second from bottom.
It's the most wins from a relegated team since University Blues in 2013, who were also 6.5 wins. We're going to have to go back a fair way, I would think. We started going through the record books yesterday, just ran out of time, to be honest. Yep. We're going to have to dig back a long way, I reckon, to find someone who's been relegated with more than 6.5 wins. That's pretty stiff, especially when you've had 6 games, 6 single-digit games on top of that. Yeah. If they'd have won any of those, five of their 5 losses, they stay up.
Yep.
They lost all 5 and they're gone. It's incredible.
It does speak to the closeness of the competition, which is why we love William Buck Premier so much, because on any given day, and we've seen this with Collegians the last couple of weeks, because you wouldn't have thought that they would have been able to push the top 2 teams, the Oldsavarians and then Old Brighton, and then lose to St Bernard's and essentially, go down to a St Bernard's win over St Kevin's. Considering the way this season has worked out, we knew that it was always going to be a very good team that was heading down to Premier B, but unfortunately, someone's going to finish ninth, and unfortunately for Geordie McKenzie, it's going to be him and his team.
What did Steve Alessio say? He must be delighted.
He is so very pleased with the end of the season. They've got a foundation, he believes, to build a team that can be competitive in Premier Men's for an extended period, and it means a lot, I think, for the club and for himself to continue on the club's great history of playing in top-flight amateur footy. And he did speak to the enthusiasm and support of players, members and supporters at the Snake Pit over the last couple of rounds. I don't need to tell anyone who listens to this podcast about how tricky it is to go out to the Snake Pit, especially at this time of the year, and take away the 4 points. It is a brutal atmosphere. So the Snow Dogs faithful getting Steve Alessio and his team over the line.
Funny old day for St Kevin's.
Yeah, I mean, with 13 changes, I would think they've actually done pretty well to have that lead to half-time. And Anthony Lynch agreed he was really happy with the first half. He actually highlighted the intensity and the pressure that playing group brought to the table. It wasn't anything that he'd seen for quite a while, and it helped build up the lead. But then acknowledged that St Bernard's star players in the second half started to get on top and generate momentum, and from there they just were able to score goals for fun. He didn't think that St Kevin's handled that period of dominance by St Bernard's very well, but couldn't question the effort and was happy with the fact that they were able to rally again during the final term. They got that margin back to within 9 points, but then St Bernard's top players responded again when it mattered most and got them home. But he's also pointed out that now there's a good opportunity for St Kevin's to reset and attack the new season, which he calls finals.
Well, this is the interesting thing. We have a pre-finals bye next week.
Yeah.
So for those players that got rested on the weekend, by the time they hit the first final, that's 3 weeks without any footy. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when St Kevin's play Old Scotch in that first final and the St Kevin's boys haven't played for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's the debate of are they fresh enough or are they too fresh that they're not match sharp? And I suppose it depends on your philosophy. We had this conversation last week, whether you do or you don't, and it's probably circumstantial.
Yeah, depends on how sore and how injured those blokes are that were rested. They might have been desperately requiring it.
Yep, and I think we'll get into it in Premier B, but there are some clubs who did the same thing. They obviously don't have the pre-finals bye as well, but if you're in the position where you've won enough games to lock yourself a spot in top 4, feasibly, you can do what you like. But I was looking through this St Kevin's team list, and it is worth something that the likes of Angus Hart and Paddy Kerr and Tom Jock played in this game, Elliot Marnie as well. They've had injury-interrupted seasons, and they're the guys who I'm sure Plugger Lynch would look at and think, you probably need to play this game to ensure you are match sharp. And someone like a Bill Coates, for instance, who, again, has had an injury-interrupted start to the season but plays such a taxing role in the ruck.
A big workload.
Probably does need a couple of weeks just to freshen up his body, considering he's got a meeting with Sam Grant in a couple of weeks' time, who is the big V ruckman of 2025. So I think it is quite indicative. I'm really excited to see Angus Hart play again, because that horrible-looking injury that he suffered out at the TH King earlier in the season, just before the double bye, I thought that might have ended his season, so it's good to see him back playing footy. I
specifically asked Geordie McKenzie about this, and we'll get a quote from Geordie in a moment, but let's talk about Collegians. St Bernard's delight was Collegians' despair. They took care of De La Salle at Harry Trott. The game ultimately counted for nothing, unfortunately, for them in terms of their scrap to survive. They needed St Bernard's to lose. The Lions came out with the desperation you'd expect, and they capitalised and pressured De La into error and forced turnover, and then scored off them and led by 26 at quarter time, and then muscled up on the inside. They had 14 inside 50s, kicked 6 goals in the second term from those 14 inside 50s, so they were lethal in the front half. Dylan Thomas kicked 3 for the quarter. What a season he's had. Got out to 46 points at the half. The game opened up in the third. Both teams added 5 goals. De La again proved their ability to serve it up. They kicked 3 in 4.5 minutes in time on. Gave their fans something to cheer about. Unfortunately for the Lions fans, despite their team being well in control, they were cursing into their phones because at this point they were looking at St Bernard's running away at the Snake Pit. So the result at Harry Trott never in doubt. The Lions, a 10-goal win. Unfortunately for them, it was spoiled by the news of the Snow Dogs' survival coming at the expense of their own. So they'll join De La in 2026 down in Premier B and spend the summer, as we mentioned, lamenting their run of 5 losses and a draw from their single-digit results this season. And look, as we said, 6.5 wins to be relegated is you're pretty stiff, but that's the way it goes in such an even competition. And De La, grand finalists last year in Premier B, they returned there this year without a victory, but Paddy, with significant gains in player and team development, I'm sure they'll feel much better equipped to challenge for the title than they were 12 months ago. You obviously followed them closely last year, and then you've seen a lot of them this year.
I think it indicates a lot to me how forthcoming Nick Hyland has been in speaking to us and also speaking to his community about how they've been going this year. Obviously, it's not worked the way they've wanted to, but he has been faultless, I think, in his ability to front up, to speak to people and to, I suppose, sell the story a little bit at De La Salle. They are probably just a bit short at the top level of their talent. I saw them a couple of weeks ago against the University Blacks, and there are definitely some really exciting young players coming through. But when you look at the top end of William Buck Premier, we are talking players, someone like a Harry Hill, who is, I think, remarkably unlucky to have not spent some time on a VFL list, let alone an AFL list. And unfortunately for De La Salle, that top end is not quite where they would probably need it to be to compete with those teams. But he did take the opportunity, Jace, to thank the players, coaches, staff, committee, volunteers, supporters for sticking with him throughout a really difficult year. And he's exceptionally confident, and I'm confident that they'll be able to, as a club, bounce back in 2026, back in Premier B.
From a Collegians perspective, obviously a really disappointing day for them. Lovely to finish with a 10-goal win, Matty, but all for naught in the end.
Yeah, well, and Jody McKenzie was very happy with the team effort. Firstly, from just looking into the match itself, was very happy with the contributors throughout the course of the match. Campbell Walker, Scott Bealby, Luke Nelson were some of the particular standouts. Herschel Waters on debut as well, kicking a couple of goals. And a couple of legends of the club playing their last game as well. Sam Hibbins and Corey Cassidy both calling time on their career. So there were a lot of individual standouts from the performance on the weekend. But as we've already alluded to, unfortunately, the results going around Collegians didn't go their way. So it was a bit of sweet end to the year with a victory, but ultimately going down. But Geordie McKenzie also spoke about how pleased he's been that the club have stuck together throughout what's been a tough season. They're looking forward to the challenge of B-grade footy in 2026.
Yeah, I then took the opportunity to ask Geordie McKenzie for his thoughts on Scob resting 13 players, and he said, look, we take full ownership of where we landed this season. The reality is we left ourselves exposed and when it mattered most. And at Collegians, our focus each week is to pick a side that gives us the best chance to win. We approach every match with that intent and hope that spirit is shared across the competition.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think, as I said earlier, if you get yourself in the position where you know you're playing finals, whatever you choose to do with your playing list is up to you. You've earned the right, I suppose, to tweak if you like. But the analogy I would use is a wide receiver in the NFL. When you're running a route, as you are, sometimes you need to run a straight line. If you try and get too fancy, go one way then the other, you will trip over your own feet a little bit. So it's just balancing those two indications. But yeah, I mean, we all feel for Geordie, but as you mentioned, they lost those games by that slim margin, Jason. Had they won one of those, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
And I think earning the right is the right phrase. In the same way that you earn the double chance if you win enough games during the season, that if you do slip up the first week, you've got another opportunity. If you play well enough during the season to guarantee your spot in that finals, you earn the right to manage your team how you see fit in the final few games.
Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sam Hibbins. He's been such a warrior for this footy club for such a long time. The surname Hibbins is so closely aligned with the Collegians footy club.
Yep.
So a big
and
congratulations
Wesley
to him.
College generally, they've got a long history of working on staff there, being teachers, etc.
Yep.
It's a legendary name in that community. And also from a Collegians perspective now, the challenge for them, they'll drop down to Premier B. They've lost Hibbins, they've lost Cassidy. The question is, can they retain others? Can they recruit others? That's the challenge now. They have other players who say, well, if you're going to drop down to Premier B, I'm not playing anymore. I'll go somewhere else because I want to play top flight. Can they bring in good young kids from Wesley, from the school coming through? Like, what's that? So for them now, it's a very interesting and delicate time. And we've seen with Fitzroy and Old Melburnians, they've gone from Prem A down to Prem B this year. Fitzroy are now going to do the double drop. Old Melburnians just avoided the double drop. There's no guarantee that you come straight down and bounce back up. Now, if they retain the vast majority of the players that they've got now, they should be in a position to challenge for Premier B, you would think, and be too good for Premier B. But that's always the danger, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. So the last couple of seasons, and I can only speak to the time where I've been reporting on the Ammos, but we had Caulfield Grammarians in 2024 missed the double drop by that much. They were so close. It was the last weekend of the season. They beat Old Camberwell combined with a Beau Morris loss. The Sharks went down, and in the end it was Caulfield that stayed up, and they've been able to jump back up and play finals this year. In 2025, you mentioned Fitzroy. We knew that they were going down for the double drop weeks ago, and the Old Melburnians, they were in a better spot, albeit earlier in the season. Injury and unavailability has been the story for Nathan Brown and his team. There's history here. It is genuinely very difficult to pick yourself back up. So you look to a club like Old Haileybury, what they were able to do after going down in similar circumstances to Collegians. I think they won 5.5 games or maybe 6 games, if memory serves me correctly, with a very healthy percentage. They only went down by a fraction of a percent to Premier B and bounced straight back up, won the premiership and nearly made the finals in A grade in 2025. So big summer for Collegians. You've got to make sure your connections with the school are strong. The connections with the players that they might have brought in over the last 12 months remain strong, and hold on to the bulk of your list. And we know just exactly how competitive Premier B is at its top end.
Oh, Brighton rolled into Melbourne Uni knowing a win over Uni Blues would secure them a second straight minor premiership, but a loss could see them finish second to Old Zabs. Brighton and the Blues went goal for goal in the opening term. The Tunners found the last two of the quarter. They led by 13 points at the first change. Possession roughly even in the opening half, but old Brighton, as they often are, more efficient and precise. Their intercept game started to take over. They had territorial dominance. They kicked 4 goals to 1. Suddenly it was 35 points at half-time. Old Brighton on top. Uni Blues' best quarter was their third. They were beaten on the inside. They played some good incept footy of their own, though. They got it back to 29 points, but then any hopes of another comeback were snuffed out pretty early. Old Brighton came up with the opening 2 goals of the last quarter and went on to win. James Stewart finished off his productive season, 2 late goals. He had 52. He finished 7 behind Andreas Stefanakis in second spot in the league goal kicking. The Tunners collecting their second straight minor premiership, a 42-point win. And really, gentlemen, after last season's grand final day disappointment, their season starts now.
Yeah, it does. And Old Brighton just doing what Old Brighton tends to do. The exciting part for this, for me, as a man who loves watching Joey Campili play, this was game number 5. So he's going to play in the final series. Yeah, this game against the Old Zaverians is going to be so good to watch. 2 very high-powered offences, 2 really high-powered midfields, but with some injury narratives for both squads. We know that Harry Hill, I think he had a corky a couple of weeks ago, so he didn't play in this game, was probably given the week off. We know the story at the Zavs about Marcus Stavro and his grade 3 syndesmosis injury. So we won't be short for highlights, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. But a big congratulations, Matty, to Matt Smith, I think, the coach of the University Blues, because he's had such a strong year after a really tough start, and he's been really honest, I think, in his assessment of his own coaching. He says in the quotes here, Jace, that Brighton, very good side, minor premiers for a reason. The Blues had moments of control but just weren't able to convert on the scoreboard. Missed some easy opportunities, but he was pleased to see his team fight it out and not allow a total blowout.
Yeah, they recovered. They won just 2 of their first 11 games, and they finished half a game clear of the drop zone in 8th position in Matt's first season as coach. So they did a really good job to steady themselves when the season could have completely got away from them. And as we mentioned, James Stewart, 52 goals. Darcy Churgwin, the competition's leading ball getter. He had 30 disposals a game this year. He was a fantastic find. A lot of positives there for the Blues. Speaking of positives, Marcel Bruin and the Tunners.
Yeah, no, he was very happy with the way that they finished the home and away season and very proud of the group for creating another chance at winning a premiership this year, given the way that they've played over the course of this home and away season. It didn't go all to plan in the course of the match, and they had to work really hard to pressure the Blues at the contest, and they were able to take advantage of the opportunities when they were able to get forward. And certainly credited Uni Blues for patches of play throughout the game when they were really dangerous and looked to get on top. But overall, it was just Old Brighton proving why they're the minor premiers. In the end, they were just too good for too long in this contest.
That victory to Old Brighton meant that Old Zabs were locked in a second spot. They finished their home and away season in fine style. A comprehensive win over the Blacks at Toorak Park. They made an early statement, Zabs. They kicked 3 goals in less than 3 minutes to skip out to a lead, and they'd hold that lead for the entire afternoon. Credit to the Blacks, though. They found their feet, and it was only 10 points of difference at half-time, but then Zabs responded, muscled up in the third term. Sterling Phipps-Parson stepped up, and despite having 2 fewer inside 50s for the quarter, they kicked 5 goals to 1, and then much the same in the last quarter. They tuned up by taking their chances. They had a 7-goal-to-1 last term, won it by 68 points. And I mentioned Phipps-Parsons. He spent much of the season in Carlton's VFL team. 29 disposals, 6 tackles, 10 clearances and a goal. Sam Conway was great for the Blues in the ruck against Alex Spraley. He had 64 hit-outs, 10 clearances of his own. Zabs will hit September having won 11 of their past 12. The only blemish, a 33-point loss away to Brighton. And those 2 teams will play in a fortnight. For the Blacks, a roller coaster season. They lost 4 of their first 5, and they looked to be in real trouble. They then won 5 in a row to be suddenly looking like they might play finals, but then lost 6 of their last 8 on the run home to slip out of contention. They finished 6th, but plenty of positives to build upon for Dale Bauer in 2026.
Yeah, sluggish form to bookend the season, but in the middle they showed they're one of the best sides of the competition when they can get their game up and running, and Dale Bauer was really happy with the way that his team fought. This game, as you said, could have been all over by quarter time the way it started, but for 2.5 quarters it was a really close game, and the Uni Blacks were able to keep with the Zabs for a lot of that time, but eventually the Zabs were just too good in the end and powered away in that last term, 7-1. Dale Bauer also wanted to pay his tribute to skipper Campbell Moorfield, who played his 150th game on Saturday and managed to get a goal as well in the third term. So congratulations to Campbell on his achievement and his season. Bauer was happy with the progress that the Blacks have made in 2025. They've improved by 1 win compared to their campaign the year prior, and they'll be looking forward to the off-season. They've got a clear goal of playing finals in 2026. They're really keen on taking that next step. Paddy?
Now, Matty, you've called both the Old Zavs and Old Brighton throughout this season. You had a good look at the Old Zavs at the weekend. Long-range forecast. Who's going to be first into a grand final?
Oh,
Tips time later, boys. Paddy's been doing this show for 2 years. He still doesn't understand how it works.
Thank you, Jace. You've saved me.
Doesn't understand how it works. Dan Donati from Old Zavs. What did he have to say, Patrick?
I want tips now, mate. I want my dessert before dinner. Tight first half. Blacks defended really well. They transitioned the ball with ease, and I think Dan Donati would be particularly unhappy with that. They adjusted after halftime, the Zavs, and got the game on their terms. They knew that these last round games can be a little bit tricky to navigate. They have been in previous history. They had the top two locked in. The Blacks couldn't play finals, but he gave credit to both sides for the effort and spirit shown from the first bounce that neither squad sort of sandbagged at all. They've got a number of players that are waiting in the wings. They had a number of players at the weekend who wanted to take their opportunity. So the depth really shone for the Old Zavs, which, Matty, has been the story of their season to date.
It has. Just one final point I wanted to mention from this game.
It better not involve a tip.
No, not involving a tip. It's one of the most entertaining matchups of the year. Charlie McIsaac of Zavs against your boy, Away Macking.
Oh, I can't believe I wasn't calling this game.
You would have loved it. On paper, it looks like a comfortable win. McIsaac kicked 6 in the end, but Away Macking was very good at times. It could have been a lot more were it not for Macking. He took a number of intercept marks. There were some really good one-on-ones. It was classic 90s, full forward v full back, one-on-one. It was great stuff, Paddy. You had to be there.
That's the VAFA equivalent of Rance v Franklin. I think that would be so much fun. I'm going to watch that on replay specifically because I've got a lot of time for both those gentlemen. So, yeah, Away Macking, a word for him because he did have an interrupted start to the season with a hand injury. He's gone to essentially play full-back this year with Campbell Moorfield switch up forward, and he's just looked terrific. He's actually not as tall as you think. He gets up a very, very long way, such as his leap, but he's been able to take some bigger bodies this year and perform admirably. That
is Premier Men's for this week as we look ahead to their semi-finals in a couple of weeks' time. Tips coming up a little bit later, but next we will talk, because we've got to talk Premier B now.
Follow the
There's
rundown,
so much
Paddy.
going on. Premier B next on For the Love of the Game.
Tickets are now on sale for one of the signature events on the VAFA calendar, the 2025 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, held on Friday, September 5 at Zinc Fed Square. Join us as we celebrate the road to the VAFA and AFL Finals, with 5-time premiership player Dermot Brereton and 2-time Brownlow medalist Greg Diesel Williams. Secure your tickets today at vafa.com.au.
Hey guys, introducing GYG's $12 chicken mini meal. It's the ultimate value bundle. A mini chicken burrito or bowl, medium Chipotle seasoned fries, and a bottle of water or a soft drink of your choice. It's cheaper than cooking at home. Love ya.
Tickets are now on sale for the William Buck Premier Women's Grand Final Day function at Elsternwick Park on Sunday, September 21. Hear from both coaches pre-game and watch the premiership decider from the comfort of the function room with finger food and a cash bar. Tickets are just $30, including gate entry, and are available now at the VAFA website.
This is For the Love of the Game, thanks to Mequicare, looking after 16,500 people across Victoria each and every week. And Paddy, it's time to talk Premier B, the roller coaster ride that has been Premier B. We said at the start of the year it was going to be the most competitive section in the entire VAFA, and so it's proven to be. It went all the way to the wire in the final round. So many teams, 7 teams, were still a chance of playing finals football. But when the music stopped, it was the Panthers who managed to grab 4th spot.
Unbelievable stuff for Luke Giles and his team. He took over from Aaron Bailey at the start of the year after the club won the Premier C 2024 Premiership, and they've been able to do it. They had to beat the Ogs and Hope Williamstown CYMS defeated Old Camberwell. Both those things eventuated, and there were celebrations deluxe amongst the Carey faithful. And joining us on the line is the coach of Old Carey, Luke Giles. Luke, congratulations.
Thanks for having me, gents. It's exciting. It's I spoke to you last week and said, the fact that we've, heading into the back end of the year and we'd managed to beat every side in the comp, bar Ivanhoe. I think that was a big enough tick, but to go on and find our way into a final is really big for the club.
What's it done for the confidence, one, of the group, Luke, but 2, your own confidence? This is your first year. You're coming in off the back of winning a flag under Aaron, so that always sets a really high benchmark that everyone compares you to. What's it meant to you over the last 3 or 4 days? You've had some time now to process it.
In terms of the confidence side of things, the confidence was there from the start. I think, from the outside, you see a team coming up from C grade and, a tick for us in other people's eyes is 6 or 7 games. But when you're the coach and you see people at training every week, you kind of know what you've got. So confidence-wise, it hasn't done a whole heap, but I would say, the real joy is in seeing what it does to the Carey community. I've never seen so many Carey people and people from the wider Carey community at a 3/4 time huddle in my time at the club. So, to see the rooms packed after the game was, I think that's where you get the real highlights from. It's great to be in a final, and it's great for the players and the coach and the people connected in that sense. But to see what it does for everyone, you boys know better than anyone. To get into a final, it's so much bigger than the players and the coach. It's the people that have made dinners every Thursday. It's the president. It's the girls. It's the thirds. It's all encompassing. So, it's brought a lot of joy to a lot of different people.
Well said, Luke. And we talk about this new Carey reset, Paddy, that Aaron Bailey was talking to us about 12 months ago. This is all part of that.
It is, in fact. So we'll go through the game against the Ogs. It looked a little bit concerning early for the Panthers when Old Geelong jumped to an early 3-goal lead, and they were, of course, unable to play finals, Old Geelong, but they did have the retiring Will Sloss to play for and have themselves enjoyed a really quality season under Nick Dixon. Those Panther concerns, though, were allayed in the second term. Old Carey piling on 7-0. They flipped a 17-point deficit to a 27-point advantage, dominating the stat sheet, by the way. Significant advantages in that second term for disposals, which they had a plus 24 differential, inside 50s plus 12 and marks plus 8. The Ogs charged a little bit in the third. They kicked 5-3. They cut the lead to 15 points at the final break, but Old Carey held firm, 95-72 victors and winning themselves into the top 4 for 2025. Luke, can you tell us a little bit about the atmosphere in the rooms after the game?
Yeah, it was not like anything I've seen in my time at the club. But, like I said before, it's just so important. And, although it's, I could reel off all the cliches in the world about 1 week at a time and this and that, I think it's so important to have that moment with everyone part of the Carey community in the rooms after the game. And like, we did take a minute to just say, hey, let's have a look at what we've done. We've broken a few rules along the way coming up out of C grade. That as much as a final's great, that marked our 11th win, which, from my understanding is very unusual. So, we did have that moment in the rooms after where we just leaned into it and said, hey, how good's this? It's not too often you go into a first final with, minimum expectations. So we can just lean into the week and enjoy it. And I think it was important to have that moment with all our, family and supporters and everyone that puts in the work after the game to say, hey, how good's this?
Were you keeping track of the other game, Luke, throughout the day? Do you have someone in your ear saying, hey, here's the score over at Willie?
Yeah, so I did say to the players before the game, I don't want to hear one thing about the other game. And then went on to absolutely contradict myself every 10 minutes, asking people for updates and everything. So that's the last time the boys will probably listen to me with anything like that. But we did, we were getting updates. It went exactly the way you can imagine it, to be honest. You've got 90% of your attention on your game, and then 10, checking in on what's going on elsewhere every 5 minutes, as it turned out.
Luke, Matthew Donald here. Congratulations on the season and the qualification for finals. We've got to look ahead now to that game up against Caulfield Grammarians. Played them twice, won earlier in the year and only just lost your most recent match. Are you able to take much from those two games into this weekend, or are finals just a different kettle of fish altogether in that respect?
We take a lot from the second game. I wouldn't try and get a read on what happened early in the year. I don't think that's a metric we should be going off. But that second game, we felt like their interceptors probably got a hold of us. So, for us, to be honest, as strange as it might sound, given we're going into a first final, it is still a development year. So every week is, less so been about, taking away what the opposition do well and more so concentrating on what we do well. So there'll be a little bit about, making sure their tools can't set up behind the ball and making sure we get some speed on the ball. But, it's more so about just being what we are. And, we know, I'm fine saying it on the podcast, that there's no secret. We're a small forward line and, we need to get some speed on the ball. So, at this point of the year, we're not going to go changing personnel or try and fix things that we haven't been able to fix for, the best part of, 18 rounds of footy. We're just going to go in and, try and hit the KPIs that we do week to week. And, at the end of the day, if their tools or their good players are good enough to deal with what we serve up, then good luck to them.
Does the fact that it is a development year alleviate the pressure at all for you heading into this match?
Yeah, it does. No, it definitely does. I think I said to Paddy yesterday, actually, that, yeah, it's unusual that you go in to a first final and you're filled with excitement more so than, the performance anxiety that comes with it. And I think that, part of that's seeing what we've done for the wider Carey community over the last couple of days. The support that we've got is huge. It's been less so about, come on, let's go and win a final and win a premiership, and more so about taking a deep breath to say, hey, what a great effort, coming up out of C grade and doing what we've done. So I think it does relieve the pressure, but the good thing about that is, I suppose, the trade-off is that when it comes 2:00 on Saturday, the competitive juices are flowing. No one's okay with losing. There'll be no world where we go in and don't take a willingness to compete into the game.
Or Sunday in this occasion, 2:20 Sunday at Preston, Caulfield taking on Old Carey. You look at your form line to get here, Luke, and it's justified. You beat Old Camberwell, you've beaten Williamstown CYMS, you beat Old Geelong a couple of times, you've beaten Old Trinity. All the other teams that were around you in the mix, you've managed to have wins over throughout the season. You come in on a 4-game winning streak, so your form's very good. It stacks up. That other game, Old Ivanhoe versus Old Trinity, that's Saturday, 2 p.m. at Preston. What are you expecting there? Who wins that?
I wouldn't be game to tip. I wouldn't be game to tip a winner out of that. I will be there watching. What I would say is, and what we've learned after trying to beat the best sides, and granted we came up short against Ivanhoe, but all those sides when they run into each other, you really walk away talking about how slick the ball movement looked and how good the foot skills were. What you walk away thinking, geez, they brought the heat, they brought the pressure. So, for us, if we're going to have any chance of beating those sides, we need to walk away and say we just gave them no time and space. And, we've seen sides like Ivanhoe, cough the ball up and make skill errors, when they're under pressure, and the same with us and the same with Trinity. So, what you expect is 4 quarters of, relentless pressure. And if you can do that, and, you tend to wear a team down. I've said to the boys plenty of times that the margins between the best and worst teams are not what they appear sometimes. It's actually a bit smaller than you think. If you can bring the pressure for a full game and do it consistently at a high level, then, that's what separates, the top 4 from those sides that probably struggled.
I tried to get a tip out of him, Paddy. He was too good for me.
I know, he's learnt from the best. We'll leave you with one final one, Luke Giles, and that's about your forward, Daniel Clark, and the goal he kicked from the pocket that I have seen splashed everywhere, all over social media. I just want to get a monetary figure about how much he's been fined during the week or will be fined.
You know what? If I give that any airtime at all, the boys will run with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they dish up on Thursday night at training. In a week from now, that would have been 4 lanes deep on the Eastern, and then in a month from now, when they're on footy
kicked it from the next neighbourhood.
He kicked it from the West Gate somewhere. So it did. I must say, from where I was standing, I just went into shock for 10 seconds, and then it's obviously part of that forward half movement that we work on, boys.
Yeah, love your work, Luke Giles. Congratulations on the qualification and the season you've had to date, and good luck this weekend against Caulfield.
Good on you, boys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks to Luke Giles for his time. We wish him all the best for this weekend. It is going to be a beauty. And no, Patrick, I don't want to know who wins right now.
Why not, Jason?
Until the end. Round 18. Let's go back in time before we go forward. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's go with how Old Carey managed to jump into 4th, because they had a bit of fate in their own hands. They had to win to be a chance to play finals, but they did need Williamstown CYMS to help them out a little bit over at Gordon Barnard Reserve, where they took on Old Camberwell, who came into this game in form. And it says a little bit about Williamstown CYMS's season that they were able to get the job done. 95-47 victors. They were 45 points up at 3/4 time on the back of an absolute clinic in the 3rd term from young Aidan McCarroll. He stands at 209 centimetres tall, Aidan McCarroll. He took 4 contested marks in the 3rd term alone. He kicked 4 of his 5 goals in the 3rd term alone and just proved impossible to match up on. He's got an incredible reach. He's really handy in the ruck. But the interesting thing is, and if you watch the tape, is that he's really quite nimble for a fellow who is roughly the same size and shape as a biplane. He proved incredibly difficult to beat on the run and in the air, and Williamstown CYMS found him with ease. They were able to take the ascendancy through that 3rd term and go on to win.
Tell you what, he has come with a rush in the Anytime Fitness Rising Star Award.
Hasn't he?
What a finish to the season he's had, Aidan McCarroll. He's come from nowhere.
Yeah, I think it's something like 20 goals in 7 games or something ridiculous like that. He did play a bunch of the year for the Western Jets. He was a top age player there. He came to Williamstown CYMS, I believe, just shortly after the double bye, if not a week before. And he's been a revelation for them, and he's freed up Zach Provost also to play that centre-half forward role, which he does so well. The story for Williamstown CYMS, the 4 losses in a row out of the double bye, 2 heartbreakers in a row against the Fields and the Panthers in rounds 15 and 16. One of those wins, they would be playing finals. They have the best percentage of the teams outside of the top 2, but they needed old Carey to lose to old Geelong if they wanted to play finals. That didn't eventuate. So they end up finishing with a positive ledger, and Con Terzoglu, the coach of Williamstown CYMS, who I get along with so well, did want to emphasise how important that is for the football club to finish the year in the positives. It would be just about their best ever finish in Premier B, or at least certainly their best ever finish in Premier B in recent memory. It now enables them to look within the club and realise that they can play to the mid to top level of Premier B, and that means a hell of a lot for a community club that will certainly be doing a lot of recruiting over the off-season, because they have some serious talent on that list, Williamstown CYMS, and there are VFL clubs circling a number of their players.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And it's a great football area, Williamstown. It's got that pathway all the way through from the juniors to the seniors now, and we're seeing the benefits of those. Just Aidan McCarroll, one of those guys, played 3 under-19s games this year for Williamstown CYMS, then got the call up. So you're right, Paddy, played 7 games, was in the best players in 5 of them, and kicked 20 goals, 11.
Yeah, he's a remarkable young talent. So keep that name in your copybook. Hopefully, selfishly, I hope I get to see him play in the VAFA for years to come, but there would be VFL clubs, and there are VFL clubs interested in that young man. For the coach of Old Camberwell, Neil Connell, it's a disappointing result. They essentially had 4 elimination finals in a row. The Wellers to try and make finals. They failed to win the last one. They did have a few boys banged up, but ultimately were beaten by a better side on the day. I did think this was interesting that Neil Connell did mention that Williamstown, he feels that they're unlucky to not be playing finals. They've got a bit of work to do over the off-season to get better, but still a very successful season for the Wellers. They came up from Premier C a couple of years ago, and they've been really, really competitive and challenged for that final spot in 2025. So plenty to look forward to. Jimmy Allen was the star once again.
Top spot was up for grabs between Old Ivanhoe and Old Trinity, and it didn't go necessarily the way we all expected it to go. The final result might be in terms of the ladder, but, geez, a couple of very interesting games.
We'll start with the Hoers then. So they were able to take out the minor premiership. They had to survive an almighty scare from the Hampton Rovers. They held on to secure the minor premiership with a 5-point win. They did take the opportunity to rest the likes of Alex Murkov, Billy Murphy, Toby McLean. All didn't play in this game with a few little niggles and soreness after a long season. They handed key roles to the likes of Archie Franklin and Ryder Mantello, and they all performed really well. But in the final term, the Rovers, they were down by 5 points. They had the wind. Ivanhoe had no bench. So it was really tricky times for the Hoers and Jared Geesham, but they just got out of jail. 7 goals, 17-59 to 8-6-54. This is a remarkable stat, by the way, Jason Matthew. Ivanhoe had 59 inside 50s, which matched their total score of 59. They had a point per inside 50, which is a remarkable level of inefficiency. So there's a little bit
7-17 says a bit.
There's a little bit to fix up for Jared Geesham, and he does admit that they're not playing necessarily their greatest footy at the moment. He is really looking forward to finding that against the Tees this weekend in the second semi-final. And the Tees come in with a loss. They were defeated by the Caulfield Grammarians, Paul Satterley's squad, shoring up third position. They did need to win to be sure of it, and that they did. Again, the Tees taking the opportunity just to rest a couple of players, just to ensure that they're cherry ripe for their game against the Hoers. That's coming up this Saturday afternoon at Preston City Oval from 2 p.m. But a remarkable rise we must also mention for Caulfield Grammarians. I did say earlier in the podcast that on the last weekend of Premier B's 2024 season, they were looking to survive relegation. This time they were looking to secure their place in the finals race, and that they have. Paul Satterley's done such a magnificent job with this list. The likes of Sam McInerney, Jack Elwood, Matt Clarkson finding plenty of the footy. Ollie Lowe's been magnificent for this midfield once he's come back from North Melbourne VFL. The key thing for Caulfield now is preparing for a very in-form Old Carey side as they come into this first semi-final, the elimination final. The Tees, they won't take out the minor premiership, but they know they've beaten Old Ivanhoe twice already this year. So it would take an aberration, I suppose, for the Tees to not be first through to the grand final, but Donald McDonald, their coach, knows he's got his work cut out for him.
And the final game of the weekend was a nice way for Trav Ronaldson to finish his 2-year stint at Fitzroy as the Roy boys got the job done against OMs.
Yeah, 77-33 in the morning start for this one. The story for the Roys, the Ramstraw brothers, Heath and Laird. Heath had 42 touches, Laird 31. Heath plays for Carlton VFL and Laird for Footscray. So 2 success stories for the Roys. Great to see them coming back to secure a 3rd win of season 2025 and to farewell Travis Ronaldson. On a good note, the Roys, they've played 18 senior debutants this year. They've used 49 players in the seniors. So it's been a period of transition, and Travis Ronaldson says that he expects the club, he won't be coaching the club, but he expects that they will emerge stronger after this period of transition. It's not gone the way they wanted to in 2025, but they have been able to turn over the list, find a few younger players and be able to bring them through the ones. For the OMs and Nathan Brown, it's a season of almost. They were 6-5 in round 11. They were inside the top 4. They finished 7-11. They went 1-6 after being inside the top 4. It's injury and unavailability that has been the big problem for the Redlegs. Jackson Payne played his last game for the Old Melburnians, kicked a couple of goals. Thomas Spargo, 30 disposals to go with 9 marks. So the OMs, they will finish up in 8th. They will survive. They will avoid the double drop, but it's a big off-season, I think, for the Redlegs to return to top flight where they think they belong.
So the 2 teams that will be relegated are Fitzroy and Hampton Rovers, and they'll both have new coaches in 2026. Marty Pask stepped down as the coach of the Hampton Rovers as well. Where are the Rovers at?
It's a tricky one for the Hampton Rovers. You sort of look to De La Salle as an example in top flight, where they've been able to come up a division after getting, to be honest, smashed in the grand final in the lower division, and you've seen the other club that's come up go really well. So the example for the Rovers is how well Old Carey have performed. They've got such a young list. They've had a shocking year with injury, a really difficult year. They've really had to play a lot of younger players, and I think that's unfortunately stood out for them in the fullness of time. But they are a strong community club. They will find some players out of this year, despite, I suppose, the difficulty with having a reduced list and reduced players to pick from. They have been able to expose a lot of talent to a really high level of local football. So I think they'll be better for the run. I don't really see this team falling away significantly in 2026 in Premier C.
That's it for Premier B. Next, we will talk Premier C as we head towards semi-final weekend on For the Love of the Game.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Hey guys, introducing GYG's $12 chicken mini meal. It's the ultimate value bundle. A mini chicken burrito or bowl, medium Chipotle seasoned fries, and a bottle of water or a soft drink of your choice. It's cheaper than cooking at home. Love ya.
This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Prem C, which has been a wonderful competition right throughout the season. The top 4 have been set in stone for quite a while now. We get to see them go at it in September, which is going to be exciting. It was Parkdale Vultures finishing on top, a game clear of Beau Morris. So those 2 teams had the top 2 spots locked up a while ago. And then St Bede's, Mentone and Ajax had 3rd and 4th spot locked up. So we'll talk final round. Let's run through the scores and then we'll look ahead to the finals. In the final round, it was Marcelin finishing with a win. They finished the season really strong. 14-15-99, defeating Paran 8-10-58, 41 points there to Marcelin. Pegs over Ajax and a bit of a surprise. Great finish to the season for Pegs and a bit of a concern for the Jackers. 11-12-78 Pegs, Ajax 6-9-45. Not the sort of form they want to be carrying into September. Parkdale, no problems. They won by 49 points over Mazenod. 14-16-100, defeating Mazenod 7-9-51. Beau Morris by 31 points over Glenira Old McKinnon, 8-21-69 to 5-8-38. And St Bede's Mentone over Parkside by 9 goals, 18-17-125, defeating Parkside 11-5-71, which means Parkside, unfortunately for them, will be relegated alongside Paran. They finished level, Parkside with Mazenod, both on 4 wins, but Mazenod with superior percentage by about 19%.
Yeah, we were watching this one over the last couple of weeks, Jason. It was all coming to a head in round 18. Mazenod having Parkdale Vultures to come up against Parkside with St Bede's Mentone Tigers. So wins unlikely. It was going to be percentage that was the decider. And yeah, unfortunately for Parkside, they fall short. So they're on their way down to Division 1 with Paran, who after a good couple of seasons, the good form comes to an end, but they've had a terrific run over the last couple of years.
So this sets up a couple of really interesting semi-finals this week, because as we've mentioned, Parkdale and Beau Morris have been, Matty, the 2 clear standout teams. pretty evenly matched. They're going to go at it for a spot in the grand final. And then St Bede's, Mentone and Ajax have also been pretty evenly matched across the course of the season, albeit the Jackers come in off the back of that loss. Maybe they rested some players. Maybe they're just getting themselves set to go. Two really interesting finals this week.
Yeah, and as you say, we've known that this was going to be the four for quite a while, that this was going to be the matchup for the first week of the finals, and it's been a really competitive top four throughout the course of the Prem C season. Really looking forward to that grand final qualifier between Parkdale and Beau Morris. The two sides have only dropped 3 games between them all season, so they are the cream of the crop as far as this division is concerned, and cannot wait to see how that one plays out.
Let's talk women's footy. William Buck Premier Women's, the final round of the season. And it was Caulfield Grammarians continuing on. They collect the minor premiership. Congratulations to them. They've come over the top, played finals last year. They've gone past Old Scotch and St Kevin's on the ladder. They finished top, 7-10-52, defeating West Brunswick 1-5-11. Old Scotch had a win as well. They'll hit September in winning form, 6-2-38 over Q3 behinds. Williamstown CYMS, nice way for them to finish, 5-3-33, defeated Old Geelong 3-1-19. And the Roy girls, Fitzroy, 4-6-30, defeated Beau Morris 1-4-10. St Kevin's had the bye. So the ladder at the end of the home and away season reads as follows. Caulfield Grammarians on 60 points, a game clear of Old Scotch, who finished second. Another game back to St Kevin's, who finished third on 52 points. And then a big gap, 5 games back to Q, who sneak into the 4 on percentage over West Brunswick. Q 115.4, West Brunswick 103.2. So bad luck there for the Magpies. They miss out on the finals by percentage. This sets up a couple of really interesting semi-finals coming up this weekend in William Buck Premier Women's, and we'll talk to Brayden May about those in just a moment because they form part of a quadruple header on community TV this weekend. Let's turn our attention to Premier B Women's. It was preliminary final day, and it was Old Brighton 4-18-42, defeating Westbourne 2-1-13. Old Brighton by 29 points in the end. The minor premiers getting the job done, and they are through to grand final day, and they will take on Old Melburnians in the grand final. So congratulations to both these teams. Old Melburnians and Old Brighton, Sunday 2:20 at Coburg City Oval. Old Brighton finishing 3 games clear of OMs, but then lost by a point in the second semi-final. Old Brighton held to just 2 behinds to three-quarter time. They trailed by 23 points. They then held OM scoreless in the last quarter, stormed back, fell a point short. Old Brighton had to back up. They defeated Westbourne by 29 points in the preliminary final. Got another shot at OMs. OMs have won 9 of their last 10. They've met 3 times this year. It was Old Brighton by 27, OMs by 14 points, which was Old Brighton's only home and away loss for the entire season, and then a 1-point semi-final. So this one should be a screamer on Sunday. The Premier B Women's, Old Melburnians, Old Brighton, Sunday 2:20 at Coburg City Oval. Preceding that game, the Division 2 Women's Grand Final, also at Coburg City Oval. This one will kick off at 12 o'clock as part of a triple header. This will be the middle game. Division 2 Women's, Parkside taking on Latrobe Uni. Final 5 system in this one. Parkside finished second to Old Carey. Latrobe finished third. So they met in that first week of the finals and the qualifying final. Parkside won that by 28 points, then upset the minor premiers, the Panthers, by 25 to get through to grand final day. Latrobe Uni beat UHSBU by 6 points, and then Old Carey by 27 in the preliminary final. So the Panthers out in straight sets, finished on top in Division 2 and went bang, bang, and they're out. Parkside have won their last 11 straight. These two teams have met 3 times. Latrobe Uni won the first one, then Parkside and Parkside. So that game at 12 o'clock on Sunday, the Division 2 Women's Grand Final, Parkside and Latrobe Uni. And the first game of the triple header Sunday at Coburg City Oval, Division 4 Women's Grand Final, Old Yarra Cobras versus Westbourne. This one will kick off about 9:40 Sunday morning. Again, a Final 4 system. Old Yarra a perfect 12 and zip since they were regraded into Division Women's 4. And Old Yarra finished third. They beat Caulfield, and then they defeated Westbourne in a low-scoring second semi-final. So Old Yarra and Westbourne at Coburg City Oval, Sunday 9:40, followed by Parkside and Latrobe at midday, and then the Premier B Women's Grand Final between Old Melburnians and Old Brighton, Sunday 2:20, all at Coburg City Oval. Get down there, triple header of action from 9:40 in the morning. Meanwhile, across at Trevor Barker Beach Oval, there's also an under-19s Division 3 Men's Grand Final on Sunday morning. This one's going to kick off at 9:20 on Sunday. It's St Mary's Salesians taking on St Bede's Mentone Tigers. St Mary's Salesian finished a game and a half clear of the Tigers, then beat them in the second semi by a couple of goals. The Tigers then beat Bowie by 33 points in the prelim. St Mary's Salesian haven't lost since round 6. The Tigers were regraded down from Division 2, and as a quirk of the draw, these teams didn't meet until the second semi-final. It was a 2-goal game. So St Bede's Mentone Tigers led that by 17 points at halftime. And then St Mary's Salesian kicked 5-9 to the Tigers' 10 behinds after half-time. So even though it was a 2-goal game, a lot closer than that. So looking forward to that one. It's under-19s Division 3 men's grand final, St Mary's Salesian against St Bede's Mentone Tigers. Trevor Barker Beach Oval, Sunday morning at 9:20. A couple of Saturday grand finals. We'll talk about those after the break. This is For the Love of the Game.
Tickets are now on sale for one of the signature events on the VAFA calendar, the 2025 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, held on Friday, September 5 at Zinc Fed Square. Join us as we celebrate the road to the VAFA and AFL Finals with 5-time premiership player Dermot Brereton and 2-time Brownlow medalist Greg Diesel Williams. Secure your tickets today at vafa.com.au.
This is For the Love of the Game, thanks to Mequicare, looking after 16,500 Victorians every week. And it's time to talk divisional footy, and it is finals time. Let's bring in our For the Love of the Game divisional guru, Brayden May from News Corp and the Herald Sun. Brayden, thanks so much for your time as always, mate. We've been looking forward to some of these games for such a long time. Let's start with Division 1 with two absolute powerhouse teams going at it in that second semi-final. We're talking, of course, of Ormond, who went 18-0, and Old Peninsula, who went 14-4, so they were 4 games back, but we were fascinated to see what Peninsula could do against Ormond. And as it turned out, it was Ormond by 17 points in the end at Beach Oval.
Yeah, the Monders got what they wanted. Kyle Pinto, the coach, has spoken all season. He'll tell you, if you speak to him, we want to be in Premier C, and they've earned a place in the grand final, and with that, they've got promotion. It's a great effort for a group that we actually found out a lot about in 4 quarters of footy. It may sound strange for a side that went 18-0, but so many times you get to this stage of the season, you go unbeaten, and then you go in straight sets. But especially with such a young group, to come away with a win and really hold their own against a very different, I guess, Old Peninsula side when you look at probably their demographics. Ormond, obviously, super young. Old Peninsula, super experienced. It's a great result for what they're doing. And I think the best thing is they're all homegrown talents. And if they keep them together, who knows what they can achieve, because special things happen when you play with your mates.
It was only 2 goals of difference at three-quarter time, but Ormond kicked 3 of the first 4 goals in the final term to basically put it to bed. So Peninsula very competitive. In the other game, the first semi-final, the knockout game, Kew versus Oakley. It was Kew 11-9-75, defeating Oakley 4-12-36 by 39 points.
Yeah, it sets up a very, very intriguing preliminary final for both sides. Obviously, I don't think Old Peninsula have hidden the fact that they are desperate for a premiership. They want to achieve a bit of club history, and they'll come up against the Bears side that are just a well-balanced side. Speaking to opposition coaches, they've got some good players, but no one where you go, he's the genuine star. They're just so balanced 1 through to 22, and I think there's going to be a bit of a watch this week for the Pirates. George Fletcher, the skipper, didn't play on the weekend. Nathan Jones didn't play due to VFL commitments with Casey, and Casey's VFL side are playing Saturday night, so it'll be very interesting to see if he does roll out, because what a difference he can make, the former Melbourne captain, if they get him out there. But it's shaping as an absolute beauty, that game, and one side's going to go away very, very disappointed. But just I want to give a quick shout out to Oakley. I think there was a lot of question marks over how they'd go this year when they were relegated from Premier C, but Chris Warner, he's done a remarkable job with a very young list to get them into the top 4, and unfortunately, bad kicking's bad football. They kick 4-12. If you flip that around to 12-4, stranger things have happened. But I think they've got a lot to build off in the off-season. So hopefully another year of development, another pre-season for some of these kids, get a bit stronger. They're a side that probably we're talking at the pointy end of the season again next year.
Yeah, the good news for Old Peninsula is their preliminary final this week against Kew is 2 o'clock Sunday at Box Hill City Oval. So Nathan Jones can fulfil his Casey obligations on Saturday night and be available to play on Sunday. Let's talk Division 2, Paddy.
Let's talk Division 2, Jason. What a story South Melbourne has been in 2025. They started the year, Brayden, 0-4. They won their way into 4th place on the ladder. They had the cutthroat game up against West Brunswick, who finished 13-5 to South Melbourne's 11-7, and they won by 3 points. They downed the Magpies. They live to fight another day, South Melbourne Districts. 8-9-57 to 8-6-54. This is just an incredible story, Brayden.
Oh, it's absolutely remarkable. And I can tell you, I think a few of the opposition coaches are probably getting a bit of a surprise from the Swans, because earlier in the year, they've obviously been spoken about the huge player turnover. I think it was almost 30 players left the club, so they had to bring all these guys in. And then when they actually played this, the way the fixture rolled out, they played the other contenders in the middle of the year. They were all away on holidays, but now they're only 4 quarters away from a grand final. And I think what's really exciting is, if you're a potential candidate for the coaching job, Nick Abbott's obviously departing, you must be really excited what this group has got. It's a perfect advertisement for South Melbourne Districts to attract the right candidate. They've got the junior program as well, and if they can keep them together, and especially if they go up to D1, it might just be a bit more attractive to potential new players as well.
Yeah, they trailed this game, Brayden, by 3 points into time on. They kicked the last goal of the game at the 25-minute mark to beat the Magpies by 3 points. So big congratulations to everyone down at South Melbourne Districts. In the other game, it was even closer. We had a 3-point game in the cutthroat. We had a 1-point game in the second semi-final. The Old Yarra Cobras 56 by a point over St Mary's Salesian 55. A great game of footy, Brayden May. Old Yarra had to come from 19 points down at quarter time to get it done.
Yeah, they definitely did. And being there at the ground, it felt like after the first quarter, I think even if you asked Coach Nathan Monaco, it looked like the Cobras were in a bit of trouble. They were lethargic off half forward. He gave his players a bit of a wake-up call at the first break. It was the first time he's actually given them a spray all year, and they definitely responded. And it was just one of those games where the side that was able to punish mistakes, there was a lot of turnovers through the middle, some dangerous kicks, just high loopy kicks into the middle of Preston City Oval. And both sides probably just weren't able to hit the scoreboard as they would have liked. It would be interesting if we get them on a bit more of a, hopefully more spring-like day. As we know, Melbourne weather was a bit wet and wild over the weekend. Grounds were probably a bit heavier, but it was a great game. And it was, I think if they set up again in the grand final, it could go either way. And I think the best thing for the Cobras, Jack Hall, the leading goal kicker, he's yet to make an appearance in the final series, and he's going to come back for the grand final. It's a pretty handy trump card to have.
Indeed. So Old Yarra, 15.5 wins. They went in as minor premiers. They are first to the grand final and first up to Division 1. They get the week off, and then in the preliminary final on Sunday, it will be St Mary's Salesian and South Melbourne from 2:55 at Elstonwick Park to decide who Old Yarra meets in the grand final. Matthew Donald, on to Division 3.
Yeah, good idea, Paddy. Let's move on to Div 3. We had 2 matchups involving 2 teams with identical records. Powerhouse and Wattle Park with 15-3. North Brunswick and Richmond Central with 13-4 records, respectively. Let's start with the grand final qualifier, Brayden. Powerhouse making a big statement against Wattle Park and being the first team into the big dance.
Yeah, I think these have been probably the 2 standout sides all year consistently when we talk about the top 4. But Powerhouse, I think for me, I think they're going to go on and win the premiership. It's great that they've earned promotion. They've just got a really quality side across the board for this level. Nick Cox has come in and he's done a remarkable job in his first season as coach. They've had their issues. They've had injuries. They've had guys go away, but they've really settled at the moment. And I think what's scary, they kicked 2-9 in the first quarter in the game. That could have easily been 9-2. And that is a side that is hard to defend. But Wattle Park would have thought they were still in the contest. And I think one star that we need to keep an eye on in the off-season, especially if some of the higher division teams maybe do sniff around, see if he wants to play a higher level, is Harry Officer. He kicked 3 goals. He's been one of Powerhouse's best this year, and he's a guy that's made our Rising Stars list, and it's really good to see him standing up in the big moments.
Yeah, and that 21-point lead at quarter time, Brayden, in fairness to Wattle Park, they only lost by 28. So that was the difference, wasn't it, that first quarter?
Oh, exactly right. And it can happen in these sort of games. I think we all know that at any level you can sometimes play the game in your head, a bit of nerves, and the side that settles first, and you usually get the feel after the first 5-10 minutes, can make a massive difference in a final, especially if you do get that little bit of a buffer. And even after that, it just becomes a game of momentum.
So a final score of 11-14-80 to 8-4-52 Powerhouse in the grand final and guaranteed promotion next season into Div 2. And then the other match, the first semi-final, North Brunswick against Richmond Central. It's North Brunswick who will go through to the prelim.
Yeah, they're the club that I guess they just want to get over the hump. They've got to win a game and then they'll get promotion. Obviously won a flag a couple of years ago, but they want to get through the grades like everyone else that's in D3 at the moment. The story of the game that actually caught my eye, and probably one that has flown under the radar this season, is Matt David, one of the leaders at the Bulls. He's kicked 53 goals for the season. In previous years, he's been more of a single-figure type operator. So Don Patana, who's re-signed as coach for next season, the idea to move his magnet forward, make him permanent, really powerful footballer. It's a great achievement, especially when Matt is the club's vice president as well.
So final score there in that match, North Brunswick 10-10-70, Richmond Central 4-8-32. Richmond Central season over, a record of 13-5, a percentage of 202 over the home and away season. And it sets up a preliminary final encounter between Wattle Park and North Brunswick this weekend. It's going to be a beauty. The winner of that one to go and face Powerhouse in the grand final and be the second promoted team up to Div 2 this year.
Looking ahead, Brayden, to this weekend, we have got a KTV quadruple header of VAFA finals this Saturday, and it kicks off at 9:35 in the morning. We've got back-to-back Premier Women's semi-finals. First up at St Kevin's versus Kew. It's Caulfield Grammar versus Old Scotch. And then we're into back-to-back under-19 Premier Men's semi-finals. St Kevin's versus Old Brighton. And then Old Scotch and Uni Blues under lights. It'll be a twilight game. So 4 games of footy. Let's start talking Premier Women's, Brayden. All in recent years, it's been Old Scotch and it's been St Kevin's, and they've been the 2 powerhouse teams in recent times. This year, Caulfield has changed the dynamic. They've jumped over the 2 of them to win the minor premiership, which changes the dynamic completely of semi-final Saturday. All of a sudden, you've got 3 really good teams. Kew have scraped in. First up, it's St Kevin's and Kew. The Saints to enter as warm favourites, but their 2 meetings this season decided by just 4 points and 10 points. So the Bears will fancy their chances of pulling off an upset?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think you'd have to still lean towards St Kevin's. They're the experienced ones. They know how to get it done at this stage of the year. Obviously got a host of big VAFA reps that we saw play some good footy only a couple of months ago. So I'm going back to Scott to get this one done.
And then the top 2 Lockhorns in the second semi, Caulfield Grammarians, who were belted by Scotch to the tune of 50 points in last season's preliminary final, get their shot at winning straight through to grand final day. Both these teams have dropped just 2 games all season. The Stars fell to Caulfield by 4 points in round 7, and then the Fields fell to Old Scotch by 3 points in round 16. So this is the rubber game, Brayden. Who'll win straight through and avoid the tricky preliminary final? Because it will be tricky. Whoever loses this game is going to either have to face St Kevin's or Kew just to get there.
Well, all I hope is as a neutral, we get similar to what we've seen during the year, and it's just one that goes down to the wire. That might not be good for the hearts of some of the club supporters, but it will just set up what would be a great start to the final series. Like, as we're seeing, look how close the games between the top 4 have been. This might be the start of one of the most special women's series that we've seen. Yeah, it certainly feels different, doesn't it, with 3 genuine contenders, and Kew have just scraped in, so they've got nothing to lose, and they're the danger. They're the smoky in all of this. Then we'll turn our attention to the 2 Holmes Glen Under-19 Premier semi-finals at Elstonwick Park, back-to-back action. And we'll kick it off with the second semi-final showdown. The top 2, St Kevin's and Old Brighton. And, of course, these 2 teams played an epic grand final in 2024. The Tunners sneaked home by 4 points in an absolute thriller that day, and now they clash for a ticket to get through to the 2025 grand final. Yeah, it's really exciting, and we look at the now, but imagine what we might be seeing in 3 or 4 years' time. But especially, both of these clubs know how to use the production line and just continue and filter the young stars into the senior side. So if you're a supporter of these clubs, I'd get along and get to know some of these kids that are going to be maybe senior leaders one day that are hopefully lifting the Premiership Cup for your senior sides. Yeah, and we're going to see some players, I would imagine, that have played some Premier Men's footy this year that have qualified for Under-19s finals this week. There's so much talent there. And then a Twilight Spectacular, something different, an innovation from the VAF. We've got these wonderful lights at Elstonwick Park. We saw them on the Big V Saturday. And it's going to be Old Scotch versus Uni Blues under lights for the chance to get through to the preliminary final. These 2 teams also met in this game last year, the first semi. Old Scotch ended the Blues season in a tight one, and so you know the Blues would love nothing more than to return the favour this time around. No, definitely. And I think the key thing is under lights, it's going to be interesting. It's a great challenge for some of these young men. Like, it's not something you're used to. Obviously, it's one of those strange things that on a Tuesday, Thursday, you're training under lights, so you're probably used to it. But that twilight time can be very difficult, especially the sun setting and it's in your eyes. It'll be interesting to see who settles better. So a quadruple header Saturday. Settle in with KTV from 9:35 Saturday morning. We've got Premier Women's semi-final, St Kevin's Kew, into Premier Women's second semi, Caulfield Grammar and Old Scotch. Then we've got the double header, Under-19 Premier Men's. The second semi between St Kevin's and Old Brighton from 2:25 into the first semi between Old Scotch and Uni Blues from 4:55. Brayden, wall-to-wall footy, it's going to be fantastic. Yeah, it's shaped as a massive weekend. It's best time of year when you can roll in on a Saturday day, Saturday morning, watch your footy as we've got the quadruple header here, and then it continues to Sunday. Hopefully we get some great weather and you can get out to the ground as well. You can be at the ground and watch both games. Just keep an eye, which is even better.
Yeah, 6 grand finals plus all the other finals we've been talking about on the show today. It's a wonderful weekend of footy. Braden, thanks for your time. Enjoy the footy.
Thanks very much, guys. You too.
This is For the Love of the Game. Thanks to Mecwa Care. Let's talk about our 2 Saturday grand finals. We've got a double header at Morley Reserve down in Bentley East. It kicks off at midday with the Division 3 Women's Grand Final. It's Ormond taking on St Mary's Salesian. St Mary's Salesian went 15-1. They finished 2 games clear of the Monders, but then the Monders knocked them off by 20 points in the second semi-final. St Mary's Salesian regrouped. They got past Old Camberwell by just 4 points last Saturday to set up a rematch in the grand final. These teams have met 3 times throughout the season. It was Ormond by 5 points in round 5, which was St Mary's Salesian's only loss. Then St Mary's Salesian by 39 points in round 13. Then that 20-point upset in the second semi-final. So that's game 1 of the doubleheader, the Div 3 Women's Grand Final, Saturday at 12 o'clock at Morley Reserve. And then we have Division 1 Glen Ira Old McKinnon against Monash Blues in the Division 1 Women's Grand Final. The Griffins, 16-0. They were perfect throughout the season. 4 games clear of Monash. They then beat the Blues by 32 points in the second semi. Monash bounced back. They defeated Whitefriars by 7 points in the prelim. Had to come from 4 points down at three-quarter time. They've met 3 times this year. The Griffins have won all of them by 6 points, 14 points and 32 points. So get down to Morley Reserve on Saturday from midday. Division 3 Women's Grand Final, Ormond and St Mary's Salesians into Glen Ira Old McKinnon versus Monash Blues. Coming up Saturday, doubleheader, Morley Reserve in Bentley East. So good luck to everyone who's playing grand finals this week. 6 of them coming up for us across the weekend on the VAFA. Tips time, no Premier Men's, of course, this week. So we're going to talk Premier B and Premier C semi-finals. We're going to start with Premier C, gentlemen. At the moment, Paddy, in fairness, I better give you your flowers. You're sitting there with a big grin on your face. You tipped 9 out of 10 last week, a perfect 5 from 5 in the Premier B and 4 out of 5 in the Premier Men's. So you've opened up the lead by a couple. You're now out by 10. I think you're safe.
I think I missed the St Bernard St Kevin's one, Matthew, which you were talking about.
You did, yes. That was the one you missed.
I think,
did you get that one right?
I did get that one
Did you have a look at the team sheets first? Or?
No.
Well, Matty went 5 from 5 in Premier Men's.
How did he go in B, though?
Only a couple, yeah. Well, he had to tip some upsets, unfortunately for him. They didn't come off.
He had to tip some upsets.
He had to try.
What does that leave us at the end of the year, Jace?
You're up by 10.
Am I? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Finals are worth double.
Let's talk. Yeah, each tip here from here on in is worth 10. Premier C semi-finals. We were talking about earlier how even these two will be. Let's start with the first semi-final. St Bede's Mentone Tigers versus Ajax. This game, 2:30 Sunday at Trevor Barker Beach Oval. So a Sunday semi-final. The winner through to the prelim, the loser is out. St Bede's Mentone Tigers versus the Jackers.
I'm going to go with St Bede's Mentone to give themselves a chance of jumping straight back up to Premier B. I think I predicted a Beau Morris and St Bede's Mentone grand final, so I'm trying to keep that dream alive, Jace.
Yeah, fair effort to keep Parkdale out of it now, won't it?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, this form over the last week is scaring me a little bit as far as Ajax are concerned, so I'm going to go with St Bede's Mentone in this one as well.
And then the Saturday game, 2 p.m. Saturday at Trevor Barker Beach Oval, the second semi-final for a spot in the grand final and a spot in Premier B next season. They've been the 2 standout teams. They've both been explosive at times. Parkdale Vultures versus Beau Morris. This one will be a beauty.
It will. And as I scroll through the season results, it was Parkdale by 63 points all the way back in round 3. Their most recent meeting in round 12, Beau Morris by 34 points with 29 scoring shots to 10.
Yeah, Bowie have certainly built up a head of steam in the back end of the year, haven't they? They've improved significantly. Have they improved enough to knock the Vultures off?
They've been scoring so well with ease, the Sharks. They've had some big wins over their last few weeks. 8 goals, 21 at the weekend. They'll need to be more accurate, but I think they will get the job done.
Wow,
the Sharks, first up to Premier B.
Yeah, I reckon this is the one I'm most looking forward to over the course of the weekend with the finals coming up. 2 very evenly matched teams. But I'm going to go with Beau Morris as well. I think they've just got enough weaponry to get it down up forward.
Okay, so both picking against the minor premiers. Let's talk Premier B, Week 1 finals. Both these games will be at Preston City Oval, and isn't it fantastic? We're seeing all these VFL venues that the footy department here at the VAFA have done a super job getting Coburg, getting Preston, getting Box Hill City Oval. We've obviously got Elstonwick Park. We've got Beach Oval. All VFL Tier 1 venues to be playing big finals and grand finals at. It's fantastic. So We'll kick it off. Again, we'll tip the first semi-final first. That's going to be the Sunday game. This is Sunday 2:20 at Preston. Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Carey. The winner through to the prelim, the loser done for the year.
This is a really, honestly, a 50-50 game of footy. I think both squads deserve to go to the prelim. Obviously, they both can't. I'm going to go with Caulfield Grammarians under Paul Satterley. I think the win over Trinity gives them a real move, but Luke Giles did say to me a bit earlier in the week that he felt that the Old Carey football at the weekend was their best football of the season to date. So both these teams come in really good nick. We know that a few Caulfield players will go out with the VFL availability throughout the season, meaning they haven't qualified for finals. I will take the Fields, though, in a very close one. This is the game of footy you want to get to watch.
There's been a catalogue of these 50-50 games in Prem B. It doesn't get any easier.
No,
every finals around the corner. I think I'm going to go with Old Carey on this one. It's going to be really close, though, and that's the beauty of football at this time of year, in that we're splitting hairs at this point. But I'll be going Old Carey just.
Second semi-final, Saturday, 2:00, Preston City Oval. The top two teams of the competition, and they have been the standout teams this year. There's been a lot of movement beneath them. There's been this crazy musical chairs sort of a game, and Old Carey had the seat when the music ran out, but Old Ivanhoe and Old Trinity have been the benchmarks all year. They will meet for a spot in the grand final and a spot in Premier Men's. The winner will be promoted. Old Ivanhoe or Old Trinity? Who goes the express lane?
Old Trinity haven't lost to Old Ivanhoe yet this season, and I think they will maintain that record for at least one more week. I'm going to take the Tees to get it done over the Hoers.
I wonder how draining that Old Ivanhoe win was for them last week. I know it was against Hampton Rovers, but we know that they didn't have any on the bench at the end, and they were made to earn it. I know Old Trinity slipped up. I just feel like that was more taxing on Old Ivanhoe, so I'm going to go with Old Trinity to win this game.
Now, the counter to that is Old Ivanhoe did sit some of their frontliners, didn't they to freshen them up?
As did Old Trinity, though, in their game as well against Caulfield Grammarians. So both these squads, it's pretty hard to judge them on exposed form, but Jared Geeshan did say to me on the phone that he didn't feel that they've been playing their best footy over the last couple of weeks. A team like this, it will come together when they bring some guys back, and they've been able to pick up and go quite quickly. But the Tees have struck me as maybe not like a significantly more consistent team, but I think their performances, there's been less, I don't want to say fits and starts either. I just back them as a more consistent team over four quarters.
Some fantastic finals coming up this weekend in Premier B and Premier C. Don't forget our KTV quadruple header this Saturday from 9:30. The two Premier Women's semi-finals into the two Men's Holmes Glen Under-19 Premier semi-finals. Footy all the way through from 9:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night on Saturday. A quadruple header to look forward to. Best of luck to all the teams playing in grand finals this week. As we mentioned, there are 6 of them, and everyone who is just playing finals footy. It is a wonderful time of the year. Thanks for your company on For the Love of the Game. We look forward to unpacking it all again next week. Thanks to Mecwa Care.